Welcome to our In Focus discussion tonight on protecting your children online. During the COVID-19 pandemic, children and teens are exposed to more screen time with stay-at-home orders and remote learning from home. Experts say this leads to heightened feelings of boredom and isolation, increasing the desire for social interaction, which online predators are aware of. So how big of an issue is internet safety? What are the warning signs you can look out for? And how do you have that conversation with your kids? Joining us tonight is Chief Alan White, Commander for the Utah Attorney General's Office, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and Carrie Rogers-Whitehead, founder and CEO of Digital Responsibility. Thank you both for being here tonight. Carrie, we will start with you. Let's start this conversation with why parents need to be thinking about this conversation. How susceptible are young people to online predators?
This is a great question, and it starts young, because even if you have something set up in your home, filters, rules, that doesn't mean that's going to be there when they go to school, when they go to the library, their friend's house, wherever they go. So starting these conversations younger than maybe you think they are about who they're going to encounter online, how do they handle that, and recognizing that for young children in particular, they have a lot of trust in adults, and that's a great responsibility for us. It's also an opportunity for us to model those behaviors and have those conversations when they're young enough to listen to us a little bit more. So start young, talk to them and talk with them at a very young age to help them be aware of what's out there. But parent and talk about this in a awareness rather than fear. Like just, casual, keep the conversation going as they age.
That's a great tip there to start off the conversation. Chief White, anything you would like to add to what Carrie said? What's the likelihood of children being solicited by an online predator, and what are their typical methodologies?
Well, the national statistics are 1 in 5 children online will be sexually solicited. In Utah, that's probably our numbers. We may be slightly higher than that just because we have a lot of kids in Utah. And as far as their methodologies, anywhere that the kids are online interacting with other kids, the predators are there as well. And they know the popular apps for the kids, and that's where they frequent as well.
And Chief White, do we have any recent stats, data, or numbers on online crimes in Utah?
Yeah, as far as the number of investigations for 2020, the Utah ICAC Task Force investigated 1,249 cases. We made 215 arrests, and we examined 338 terabytes of data. Unfortunately, we were only able to train 161 officers in ICAC specific training.
Those are staggering numbers. Can we talk about trends? Are these crimes getting worse or better? And did the pandemic have any significant impact on it?
The pandemic has definitely had an impact. In 2020, we had an increase of 50% as far as the cyber tip referrals that we received from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And with those numbers, the cases that we typically investigate are sexual exploitation, enticement of a minor online, dealing materials harmful to a minor, and sexual extortion. Unfortunately, we've seen an increase in sexual extortion where the thing of value is more pictures of inappropriate pictures of the children they're sending to these predators.
That is an alarming trend. Carrie, I wonder if you have anything to add as far as the impact of the pandemic. Earlier in the show, when we were doing our introduction, we talked about these feelings of isolation and need for social interaction. Have you, in your research or your work, noticed any sort of unique impact that the pandemic had with online safety?
Yeah, I mean, it's access. If you have more access, you have higher risk factors of running into something. And I'm glad that we mentioned earlier boredom. If you're bored, it's just like two kids in the backseat of a long road trip. They're going to start picking at each other, start getting into mischievous things. It happens when there's long periods of unsupervised access. But on the other hand, we've had more kids that have had more time with their parents. This COVID has also brought some people and families together, and that's a really great opportunity to have more of these conversations as they're in home on the screens together with parents.
Good. Okay, I'm glad there's at least a silver lining in all of this. Chief White and Carrie, hold that thought. We have to take a quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll resume our In Focus discussion on protecting your children online. Thanks for staying with us for our second In Focus discussion tonight on protecting your children online. We resume our conversation with Chief Alan White with the Utah Attorney General's Office and Carrie Rogers-Whitehead with Digital Responsibility. Chief White, we'd like to learn more about your agencies and organizations. What is the ICAC task force at the Utah Attorney General's Office, and what are the various online crimes against children that are investigated by your team?
The Utah ICAC task force is a multi-jurisdictional task force made up of approximately 40 federal, state, and local agencies throughout Utah. That's approximately 120 trained officers to investigate these types of investigations. We investigate sexual exploitation, enticement of a minor on the internet, dealing materials harmful to a minor, and sexual extortion.
Partnerships are so crucial there, and a lot of digital data that you have to comb through. Carrie, can you tell us a little bit more about your company, Digital Responsibility, and its mission?
Yeah, Digital Responsibility is a partner with the ICAC and the Attorney General's Office. We are the state provider of online safety. So if this is a big issue for you, you can actually book our K-12 student and parent training for free. So contact us through our website and through contact@response-ability.net. And we're happy to get out there because we are in schools. We talk to young people about this all the time. We survey them. We're on the ground, and we really want to help Chief White and all his team and all of you help keep your kids safe.
Okay, so parents and teachers don't have to have all the answers. They can turn to your organization, the experts, to help them educate and have that conversation with their children and students. Let's turn now to misinformation and conspiracy theories online. How do parents help their children evaluate the content that they ingest online, Carrie?
Yeah, this is a big issue, and I think we definitely saw it through COVID. Lots of conspiracy theories bubbling to the surface, people on screens more often, hanging out in different spaces, things spreading. We all saw it. It spread. Conspiracy theories spread around just like COVID did. When I talk about like media literacy and understanding the internet's impact, I talk to kids about themselves. What are our own, what we call them, bubbles? Our biases, our echo chambers, our beliefs, and how do our feelings affect how we react to things online and what we believe? Because it's not necessarily about facts, it's about those feelings. When we share something, when we believe something, when we follow something, it's often a statement of how I feel about myself, my identity. It's like rooting for my sports team online. And so sometimes kids fall into these echo chambers because as they're discovering their identities, they can get moved to different places that aren't necessarily the healthiest place, and they're not necessarily getting the broader picture. They're in these bubbles.
It reminds me of TikTok and these news stories that we hear about kids and teens following these TikTok trends that are not safe. That's an example that comes to my mind when you talk about misinformation. Any tips on how parents help their children dissect misinformation and content that they're ingesting?
Yeah, so have them think about what they believe. I like to see the word bubbles. What are my preferences? What am I following? And help them understand how algorithms reinforce that. Because there can be, if you're following certain TikTok videos or YouTube or whatever it is, you might keep seeing the same thing. And so you might be like, oh, everyone's saying the same thing, so it must be true. So it's never too young to talk about what's behind, why do I see these things popping up across these ecosystems? How is technology reinforcing this, and helping them understand just because you see it, just because your friends are saying it, doesn't make it true.
Those algorithms can be so helpful and so harmful. Helpful in the sense that it filters the content to your likings, but at the same time, it also might be filtering content that only provides one side or one perspective of the news or the content that you're creating. Carrie, can you also talk about the online gaming arena? What are some of the concerns that can arise from that realm of the digital world?
Yeah, gaming, just like some of the things that Chief White talked about, has increased a ton in 2020. There's been more Discord users, more gamer users, more new gamers, huge market explosion of money for game manufacturers and console makers and all of it as well. It's been a big year for gaming. We were all stuck inside and we got behind our consoles. Now, I'm a gamer myself. My family and I game together. We play together. We talk about games together. And so I'm deeply aware of what's out there. There are those online strangers. And when kids are playing these games, they're playing with multiple different ages in one places. And you might not know where that person came from, how old they are, who they are. But I think that when you start playing with your kids, you talk about it while you're playing the game. It's not like a lecture. It's not like, hello, let me tell you about this. It's, oh, let's play. This came up. And we discuss it. That helps prepare them for when they start playing on their own, or more of these online multiplayer games where they might encounter some more of that. And gaming can be a pro and a con, right? We can play it together with our family. It was a great way for staying safe during COVID, but it also does expose kids to maybe predators that they wouldn't be exposed to.
That's what can be so scary about the online world, is all of a sudden you have access and a direct line to an exponential amount of people. Chief White, I'm wondering, is your agency looking at these apps or platforms? Do you guys look at gaming platforms? Do you look at apps like TikTok?
Yes, we do. We are online doing proactive work, is what we call that. We have officers in an undercover capacity on the internet, a variety of platforms, doing proactive work that would actually generate cases, as well as the reactive. Anything referred to our agency would be a reactive case, and we work those as well.
There's just so many platforms and apps, and so we just have to commend you all to keep tabs on all of these different platforms that people are accessing through the digital realm. All right, Chief White and Carrie, hold that thought. We have to take another quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll resume our In Focus discussion on protecting your children online. Welcome to our third and final In Focus discussion tonight on protecting your children online. Before the break, we were joined by Chief Alan White with the Utah Attorney General's Office and Carrie Rogers-Whitehead with Digital Responsibility. We pick up now right where we left off. Now, both of you have kids yourselves. When you look at this issue from the lens as a parent, what are your thoughts or concerns? And Chief White, I will start with you.
My primary concern is it's important that we give our kids the devices. They need to learn so they can be responsible digital citizens. The unfortunate part of that is that increases the likelihood of contact with a predator. So we want to do that responsibly. We want to restrict that device, have boundaries. When can they use that device? When is that device locked up and being charged? A few ideas to provide some boundaries for that device.
That's a lot of trust there, right? Carrie, what about you as a parent? What do you think about when it comes to this subject?
I get this question a lot when I teach parents or I write for parents. And my biggest concern is a lot of that media literacy piece, that where these rabbit holes, this radicalization that can happen online, because it can start with a kid who's lonely, who's upset, and they have these risk factors or mental health concern, and they find these communities, and sometimes those communities are supportive, but sometimes they're really, really unhealthy. And those beliefs can affect their health, their emotions, their relationships with other people. So I see a lot of these media literacy misinformation as online safety too, and it's something that we need to continue talking about. So that is my biggest concern as a parent, even though there's plenty of concerns out there. That being said, I have a lot of hope and optimism. I feel like this younger generation of millennials especially are raising their kids with more information about digital literacy. We got digital natives, more teaching digital natives, and I think there's a lot of parents can do a lot, and there's a lot of cases to be like, we can work harder and be better at this.
Carrie, I have a follow-up question for you. I wonder if your organization looks at body imagery. I know that one thing that comes out of it, of the digital realm, is cyberbullying and these unrealistic expectations that teens and children can get from all of these pictures and images and videos that they see online that oftentimes are altered. Is that something that your organization looks at or teaches in these curriculums at schools or with parents?
Well, I think it also goes back to that self-reflection. How is this making me feel? Are we just mindlessly scrolling? What are we seeking? Why are we doing this? And so if you're seeing these images and you're feeling a certain way, like thinking about what does this mean to me? How is this affecting me? And helping them be proactive to make their own choices of where they want to spend their screen time. But yeah, it can affect especially girls, especially hitting puberty, those tween ages there. But they have to be proactive and be aware and curate their own places and platforms and make those decisions ultimately for themselves of how the internet is making them feel.
Chief White, I'm wondering, in your opinion, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, do you think these social media websites are doing enough in their role to help keep children safe?
Actually, that's a positive impact of COVID and the pandemic. I think we've seen more providers of these platforms being more responsible, and that's some of the increase. As I mentioned earlier, we saw a 50% increase in 2020 in cyber tip referrals, and I think that's some of that equation as well.
Good,
so
another
yes,
silver
I think
lining there.
that's a positive.
Good, good. Carrie, how can parents approach or navigate that conversation with their children about online safety?
Yeah, so starting young, as I said earlier, and modeling that behavior, because I think children can look to many examples of adults of not engaging with best digital behavior. So why should they listen to you if you're also not exhibiting that behavior, if you're also not being safe or doing things or following things that are not necessarily healthy? So starting there as modeling, they're always watching, even infants are watching. You see little infants reaching for phones. Why are they reaching for your phone all the time? Well, maybe because you're signifying through modeling your behavior that that's what's important to them. So start young, think about our own devices. When do we have devices out at our home? When are they not allowed? When are they allowed? How do we talk about technology? And those are some great first steps as they grow.
And Carrie, when you say start young, is that something that parents should gauge on their own, or because sometimes I think 3-year-olds are too young to have this conversation, but then I watch them with an iPad and they are boom, 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 like so good at it. So is there an ideal age bracket to start having these conversations with your kids?
Yeah, it's not too young, and also being careful, especially at those younger ages, to limit that screen time because they're learning from you. They're learning language skills and social skills from you. But I like to talk for younger kids, narrate what you're doing. It's a great way to teach literacy, to social skills, like what am I doing online? What am I doing on my phone? We're going to grandma's house. We're doing this, because so many, the first exposure of kids is we hand them maybe a video or a game. So they just think that's what it's about. And it's a tool as well, and there's some great things about it. So narrating from a very young age, even if they're not talking back to you, can help teach them and model that behavior for when they get older.
Thank you. Chief White, going back to online predators, what are some red flags or warning signs that parents can look for?
Well, I think it first starts with children make mistakes. I still make mistakes at my age. And they're going to make mistakes with their digital devices. When they make a mistake and it's online, oftentimes they're scared and their anxiety is off the charts, something they've never experienced before. So their behavior is not going to be normal. Parents know their children the best, and when it's not normal behavior, that's when you really need to start digging in to find out what caused that change in behavior.
Great tips there. We have about a minute left. Chief White and Carrie, final words. What would you like to leave our viewers with tonight? And Carrie, I will start with you.
Yeah, so like Chief White said, not reacting with fear. So I had a book that just came out yesterday called The 3 M's of Fearless Digital Parenting, based on a lot of experience working with parents, working with the great people with ICAC, about helping parents parent around technology without fear, without shame, without lecturing, collaborative mentorship, all of this positive, proactive parenting. Because when we're scared, our anxiety comes out. We transfer that anxiety to our kids. We're very black and white. We ban everything, or we like make these reactive decisions, but there need to be proactive, preventative decisions over a long period of time. There is definitely some scary stuff out there, like Chief White said, but there's also some cases for optimism. The Cyberbullying Research Center has some research around less cyberbullying in 2020, and one of the reasons Dr. Patchen thought it was that way with the researcher was that kids were around their parents more in 2020. They slept more, they were home more, so parents are making an impact, and you have a lot to offer, but you got to do it without fear, and you got to do it with your kid, not at your kid.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And I apologize, Chief White, we are out of time, but thank you so much both for being on the show. And folks, you've been hearing from Chief Alan White, Commander for the Utah Attorney General's Office Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and Carrie Rogers Whitehead, founder and CEO of Digital Responsibility. Thank you both for your insight tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget, we love to hear from you about the show. We invite you to join our Facebook group by searching ABC4 In Focus, or send us an email, infocus@abc4.com. We'll be right back.